190-inch buck at 60 yards. All I need is a couple more steps. When he came out and we saw that frame with those beams and all those extra brows, he was pretty unreal.
You've got to be kidding me. Let's go.
So 2019 rolls around, and this is before we even started shed hunting on the property. Johnny Walker, the guy who we eventually nicknamed the buck after, was out disking his fields, and we ended up finding his 2.5-year-old shed. You could tell already it was going to be a really nice buck. He had a pretty web beam, and he had a split G2 kind of coming off already, and gave us that he was going to be a really good buck. March rolls around that year, and my dad goes out shed hunting with Johnny, and 2 miles away he ends up finding both sides to Johnny's buck. And I remember going to see that buck for the first time and just looking at the sheds and realizing from 2.5 to 3.5 how much he grew and the potential that he actually had. So the hunting season of 2021 rolls around, and I was actually after a different buck that year, so I never had any encounters with Johnny's buck. But Johnny was a certified giant. He was probably 160 inches already, but just going into that year and knowing that he made it through because he was around late season in the beans almost every night, we knew that we could have a good game plan for the coming year. So that shed hunting season rolls around, and my dad goes out. He notices out in the front field that there's a beam sticking out of the snow, so he walks over there probably about 100 yards away and picks up one of the sides to Johnny's buck, and man, he was a giant. Had the mass, had the beams that just continued the mass all the way through, and he was a giant. Based on where we found sheds in the past, we kind of knew that he liked the area. Late season was one spot that he really liked to focus on the farm, and so is the early summer and up till about September. So going into the following year, we knew that was our chances to capitalize on it. So in this area, there's a lot of ag, and it's kind of 50-50 on this farm, ag to timber. We have a couple food plots and water holes specifically designed for deer movement. So the front side is where we like to hunt the most. It's got the most standing ag, and it also has a couple green fields attached to each other as well, kind of right where we built the new water hole for that year. So that timber is pretty open in there. There's a lot of pines, and it hasn't been cut for a while. There's only one specific spot way on the backside where it kind of gets more thick. So a majority of the deer like to bed on the neighbors, which is good for our access getting in and hunting the afternoons. So there's one main trail that we use to access the clover plot in the woods. It runs from west to east, and we normally walk up that and get into the clover plot. There's one big ridge that kind of helps with our access as well. We can kind of follow it up and get into our stand pretty securely. So with past luck from our Buffalo County farms, we went into this farm and added a water hole, knowing that how attractive they are throughout the whole year. And just based on the neighbors around, we didn't know if they lacked water on their farm, but we just knew it'd be another thing to throw into our repertoire for that year. With that water hole too, there's a lot of pines to the east of us that they like to bed in. So they like to come from the east to the west and kind of work around that hillside and come in for water and then slowly make their way out to the standing fields. In that woods, it's kind of more open, so it was tough to kind of pick a tree, but with all the pine trees around, we kind of snuck in between a couple of them and made ourselves pretty concealed. Knowing that Johnny's buck was going to be the number one that year, we went out and put more cameras than normal. We put out a total of 10. Late July was the first time that I got a picture of Johnny's buck, and my jaw just absolutely dropped seeing what he did from 4.5 to 5.5. So that summer we were kind of noticing a pattern with him being more on the backside of the property. So I went and littered out probably 4 more cameras on the backside just to kind of hone in where he was bedding. So the season was approaching, and he was kind of non-existent for a little bit. We had a couple daylight pictures early September, but I knew that Cloverfield was the spot to be. I just had to wait on the right wind and the right conditions. So a big cold front came in on September 22nd. With it being late September, I knew they were kind of shifting off the beans because the leaves were turning on the beans and they would be coming to the clover plot.
I'm excited to introduce a brand new Deer Society video series called The Art of Deer Hunting. Now within this series we have categories such as the art of calling, the art of food plots, the art of scent control. We're going to detail and break down all things in these categories plus more, from trail cameras, stands, scrapes, all things related to successful deer hunting is what this series is all about. This series is a culmination of all the information we've received internally from some of the best deer hunters across the country and the methods they've used to successfully harvest mature whitetails year after year. This is called The Art of Deer Hunting on the Deer Society YouTube channel.
So I was sitting there for about an hour and I was just watching all the deer come in the field, and I actually got distracted by a couple does, and I looked over to my left and there he was. When he came out and we saw that frame with those beams and all those extra brows, he was pretty unreal. So he comes out and I just have to constantly remind myself, it's just a deer. It's just a deer, because I was shaking pretty bad. But as soon as he steps out, I grab my camera arm and got my camera on him and grabbed my bow just in case he'd come within range. But he decided to stay at 62 yards pretty much the whole night until the field kind of got a little spooked and a doe blew and the whole field took off. He kind of went non-existent from the trail cameras. We get a random nighttime picture every 5-6 days or so, but being that he wasn't around on the farm, I didn't try to overpressure it and just kept trying to bounce around and shoot a doe in the meantime and get some practice for when that opportunity finally came. I actually ran into another buck that I had nicknamed Lebo. He was a 5.5-year-old, and he came out probably 15 yards away from me, and I ended up letting him go just because Johnny's buck earlier that year. Otherwise, I probably would have had to take a shot at him. It actually was almost a full month, October 30th morning, and me and my dad making a mission to go fill up that pond because we knew that it was a spot that we were going to be hitting pretty hard throughout the rut. Along with filling up the pond, I actually moved a couple of trail cameras around, and if I didn't that day, I went and got that picture of him around 3-4 o'clock chasing a doe, telling me that I needed to get into the stand now. So with that camera being more in that clover plot that I had seen him in September, I decided to go to that edge of the field where that water hole was, just so we could maybe try and cut him off before they eventually got into that bigger field. I'd probably only been sitting there for an hour before, and I'd noticed a fawn come out, and wouldn't you know it, right behind that was Johnny's buck, slowly working his way behind them.
Come on, go down, go down. Go down. Come on. You've got to be kidding me. Let's go. Let's go. Oh my God, I just did it. I just did it. Oh my God. I literally can't believe it. I can't believe it. I think he stole it right. Oh my God. Oh. Oh.
Wow! Wow! Here?
Over there.
Where? How far?
Where that Luminoc is. Take out 20, I think. Oh my God. We did it, Dad.
Oh my God!
We did it.
Unbelievable!
Oh.
Wow! We gotta get stuck.
Oh my God.
Holy God.
We did it.
Wow!
Lucky as hell today.
Wow.
Oh my God. Look at that guy.
Unbelievable!
The mask.
You think you're gonna beat that 170 line?
Don,
Right through there, right through
Don.
the heart.
What do you say, Johnny? Here's Johnny's buck.
Look at that. All right, 1, 2, 3,
Not
let's
bad,
now.
huh? Not bad.
Look at the camera.
You did it. Finally did it.
Johnny, smile.
So the first key to this hunt was definitely the history. We had sheds from this year from 2.5 all the way to 4.5, and just knowing where he'd like to be and what time of year it was, it really paid a big dividend to this hunt. The next key was definitely the water hole. I mean, going in there, we knew that spot would be good all year round, and with it being late October, going in there and filling up that water hole, I thought it would be key if I was going to be hunting there for the rest of the rut and hopefully getting a chance at him. With the deer on that property being so used to just farm equipment and Johnny's truck, I knew that could play a big factor in access, getting in and out too. And even that day when we went out and filled that water hole, left the 4-wheel running the whole time, that's something I like to do when I'm checking those trail cameras even. They don't associate that really with any fears. Cameras for sure were a main factor in this hunt as well. I mean, having as many as I did, it was so nice to kind of know where he was, at what spot, and just what type of year it was. Like early season, he was more focused on that backside, and then slowly as the rut progressed and he had other things on his mind, he'd work his way more over to that front side of the property, and we'd get him on camera a lot more there, and we knew to capitalize there.
Thanks for watching this Deer Society Hunt Breakdown. Subscribe to the channel for more great educational content to help you become a better hunter. From podcasts to the Art of Deer Hunting series, hunt breakdowns, tips, tactics, and a whole lot more. The Deer Society is all about deer hunting education.